How to create more time for yourself. So, this is a problem that I didn't even realize I had until very recently, whenever I just took a little step away from my life for a moment, zoomed out, and I looked at what I did every day, right? I looked at my calendar and I noticed something kind of scary, right? Most of the hours in that day were blocked out, scheduled out for other people. Like they were, like there were limited number of tasks and time blocks on the calendar that were actually made for me, right? Like I will have that time to myself. And I realized that that's not necessarily the life I want, right? I don't want to have a perpetual calendar that isn't even mine, right? It's just like it exists to fulfill the expectations of others. And that makes me kind of almost mad. It makes me almost mad that I've created a life where I just try to please everyone else, that I try to just keep showing up for everyone else, and then along the way I forget to show up for myself, for what I care about and what I value, right? I'm not even considering the fact that my time is one of the only resources and points of leverage that I have in my life, right? It's more valuable than money. It is more valuable than arguably anything in this world. It's your time, right? Because it's 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 abundant but at the same time it falls away right before your eyes and you don't even notice it, right? I'm still young, but I've heard of all the stories about older people explaining how time seems to go by faster and faster as you age, and it makes sense because just think about it relatively and proportionally, right? Um, and it makes me kind of not scared, not sad, but I don't know what word to use there, but it makes me feel a certain way. It makes me feel a certain way to know that my time is going to I have a lot of time ahead of me, but it's just gonna go by faster just because of the context, right? Because of the life that I've already gone through. And yeah, it makes me feel a certain way. And I know for a fact that I don't want to squander that time. I don't want to sacrifice that time to fulfill someone else's dream, right? I want that time to be fulfilling my dream. I want that time for me to create something in this life, in this one spark in the universe, right? To start something amazing, to live something that I will look back on and be like, holy crap, that was one hell of a life, right? One that I have no regrets. I did everything that I set out to do. I didn't hold back. I didn't hold back my punches. I just did things. I just did hard things. I achieved things. I pushed myself to the limits. And so if that sounds like something that you resonate with, if this sounds like a potential, a life that you would want to live, then I hope that the principles in this video will help you. So the first thing is this one's kind of obvious, but prioritize you. We already kind of talked about this, but when you look at your calendar, your calendar is a really good way to understand what your priorities are, right? It gives you a good idea of where you're spending your time and what you're doing. And so if your calendar is kind of barren, besides like if you just have like a work calendar, so it's only from 9 to 5 or whatever, start to use that in your personal life as well, right? I'm not saying that you should like further schedule out your work so that it takes up your entire day, but keep your work within that 9 to 5 interval, and then schedule everything else in your life on that same calendar. So like your sleep, when you're eating, when you are commuting, whatever it is, right? Schedule that in as well. And then you'll start to build the muscle of scheduling everything in your life into that same calendar. And then once you reach that point, you can do an audit on this calendar, because now it's basically a calendar that shows your daily routine. It maps out your day, it plans out your week, and possibly even your month and your years. So you can look at this and it'll give you a lot of insight into how you're spending your time, right? This is how I came to realize that most of my time was not spent for me. It was spent for other people. It was spent to satisfy other people and their expectations. So do an audit, right? And figure out whether you're prioritizing external motivations, external rewards, positive reinforcements, or if you're prioritizing other people over yourself. Because I think that the ultimate goal, if you truly want to create time for yourself, you need to prioritize yourself. You need to realize and be truthful with yourself and know if your time is actually yours, right? And your calendar is going to give you a pretty straight up and brutal look into this. So yeah, prioritize yourself and make your time the priority, right? If you don't want to do something, then don't schedule it. If you don't want to spend your time on Wednesday afternoon in this meeting, then figure out a way to get out of it, because that is your time, and your time is the only resource of leverage that you have. So please use it. Okay, the next principle is buffers. So this is not an idea that I came up with. This is the idea behind, I read it first in the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown. This book has absolutely changed my life. You should absolutely go read it. And buffers are essentially little extra, it's what it sounds like, right? It's a little extra time in between one activity to the next. So let's say you have to go to like a live sparring session, like a boxing session, right? At like 5:30. And you get off of work at 5, and it takes like 15 minutes it takes like 10 minutes to commute over to that gym, right? And so what most people would do is they'll leave at like 5:25, 5:20, like right on the dot. And so they don't want to be late, right? They want to be on time, if not early. And so they're rushing, they're stressed out, they get pissed in traffic. They forget to grab some equipment that they might have needed for the sparring session. It's a whole mess, right? And so it becomes this difficult dynamic to figure out, because on the one hand, you want to maximize your work output, so you want to stay and make sure that you're getting the most out of your work and you're not wasting time. But in the same conversation, you need to realize that when you're in that moment of rushing, when you're feeling like you need to get somewhere really quickly and you're stressed out and you're anxious, you essentially are squandering time that you could be spending to yourself, right? Because imagine, instead of leaving at 5:20, like 10 minutes before, you left at 5:10 or 5:15, right? Giving yourself just a 5 or 10 minute buffer so that you don't have to be stressed out in traffic, so you don't have to be rushing everywhere, so you don't have to be anxious about being late, right? Just the peace of mind of having that extra time gives you an incredible amount of leverage, right? When I talk about creating more time for yourself, I'm not saying that you're going to just find hours out of thin air, because I know we're all busy. We all have complicated lives. And so you want to be able to find the minutes and the moments in your life where you can just have it to you, just to spend by yourself and live on your own time, live on your own clock, right? And buffers are one of the easiest, lowest friction ways to do it. And all you have to do is just give yourself like 5 to 10 minutes more to get somewhere or to do something, right? If you estimate that it'll take you 10 minutes to drive over there, give yourself 20 minutes. And that buffer is it's such a luxury. And you have to just experience it to understand what I'm saying. It's like you can just commute, and it doesn't feel stressful, and you can listen to music, you can roll down the windows, you can just enjoy life for a little bit and not have to worry about getting there on time. So buffers, huge principle for creating more time for yourself. The next thing is get off your damn phone. When you start to really look at your screen time, it's scary how much you waste on doing like meaningless things, like doing meaningless tasks, doing work that doesn't actually Not work, but going on apps that just genuinely waste your life, right? They it's a waste of time. It's a way that you fill in the space of boredom. It's how you distract yourself from the suffering and the pain of life and living. And when you look at your screen time with brutal honesty and ruthlessness, you need to just grab yourself by the shoulders and realize, like, you are distracted. You are fundamentally wasting an incredible amount of time in your life, and that is not okay. It is not okay to be squandering this time and energy for something that's not getting you anywhere, right? It is my I believe that if you spent 5 minutes meditating, you'll get more, like, as far as mental health and emotional health, than 5 minutes on social media. Because I feel like 5 minutes on social media nowadays is gonna dig you into a deeper hole of, like, jealousy, comparing yourself to other people, as opposed to just meditating and just, like, allowing your thoughts to wander and giving yourself that moment to breathe, right? Like the positive outcomes there are gonna far outweigh the small hit of dopamine and possible negative side effects you'll get from going on social media. So I think if you want to create more time for yourself, just get off your damn phone, because when you do, you'll find time. You like if you're genuinely wanting to look for hours in your day back and you want to just regain those hours, look to your screen time and cut down on it, because your screen times are probably around like 6 to 7 hours a day, if not more. If your job requires it as well, it's probably more. But, like, a lot of young people, especially, have incredibly high screen times, and that time could easily be spent doing something that creates more freedom and peace of mind. And I think that expands our perceptions of time, because when you invest and when you put your time into social media, I feel like it compresses the time. It compresses the time into, like, these bite-sized, high dopamine little hits, and it makes time fly by, yeah. But at the same time, it's mindless. Like, you're not really gaining anything out of it. So if you want to expand your time, not necessarily add more hours potentially, but if you're really really packed on your schedule, if you want to just, like, expand your time and get more out of your time, then getting off your phone is a huge step you can take. And then the final thing is to work in sprints and have recovery periods. So for anything like me, you just want to work hard and you just want to, like, keep working all day long because you know you're destined for great things and you want to achieve all the great things in the world. But sometimes you got to realize that we're humans, we are biological, we're mortal, we have limits, and you can't just work all day. You can't just work yourself into the ground, sacrifice your sleep, sacrifice your diet and your health and your relationships, because fundamentally we need all those things as humans. We need them, and you can't just say goodbye to them for the sake of work. I mean, there are times when you need to be sprinting, when you need to be absolutely working yourself into the ground, but it's equally important after those sprints to take the moment to recover, to breathe, and to relax, because your performance on the next sprint depends upon your recovery, right? Like, if you think about your work as peaks and valleys, right, where your valleys are your recovery periods and your peaks are your sprinting seasons. If you skip out on the valleys, the peaks don't become peaks. The peaks just become a flat, horizontal, like, endless race. And if that's what you want, then so be it. But I don't know. I feel like the peaks and valleys add a little bit of nuance and beauty to our lives. And if you want to create more time for yourself, you need to actually put time into yourself. You need to recover. You need to dip down to these valleys where you can relax and recover from this sprinting periods. Yes, it's okay to work hard, really, really work hard during the sprints, to absolutely leave everything on the field to create those incredible peaks. But I think that it's equally important to give time to yourself, right? To create more time for yourself to recoup and recover from those moments. And it makes the experience of sprinting that much sweeter, right? Because you know that on the other side, you'll get a valley, and you know that no matter what, you'll also be sprinting again. It's not just this perpetual cycle of misery and suffering. You know, the sprinting is hard, right? It is hard. I'm not going to sit here and say that the hard work and the hustle is not going to be, it's going to be like this easy thing. It's going to be hard. It's going to be painful, and that's okay. That's good because we're going to balance that out with valleys over a long time period, right? So to sum it up, if you want to create more time for yourself, it's not about cutting things out and just like ending relationships and quitting on hobbies and all that. It's just about finding more time and expanding the time that you spend in your life right now. So it starts with prioritizing you, right? Look at your calendar and ask yourself, what of these time blocks are actually for me, right? And the goal should be to create more of those. And then apply buffers to your life, right? Just 10 to 15 minutes. Leave 10 to 15 minutes earlier, right? Give yourself the opportunity to just relax for a second and breathe and not have to be rushed. 3, get off of your damn phone, right? Expand your time by just stopping your endless scrolling and just like get off for a second and just look around. Breathe in the air, right? Think about what you're doing. Think about your life, reflect. And then finally, sprint and recover, right? Work in sprints and then recover as well so that your sprints can be even faster the next time around. I really do hope that you take this seriously and you start to create more time for yourself, because so many people feel this sense of needing to work harder, needing to whip themselves even harder. But I think that freeing up your calendar to spend more time with yourself and who you are and understanding who you are and living the life that you want is so much more valuable and long term than just whipping yourself and trying to work for a life that you'll live later. The life that you want to live is the one that you're living now, I think. So embrace that and create more time for yourself. Goodbye. How to find joy. This sounds woo-woo. This sounds philosophical. This sounds like a question that you can never have a real tangible answer to. But this is the way I kind of think about the idea of joy. And I'm going to apply some principles that you wouldn't necessarily associate with joy to kind of deconstruct how we can, as humans, find a little bit more joy in our lives. So the first principle is inversion. I'm stealing this from Charlie Munger. We're basically inverting the idea of joy so that we live less of a life that is lacking in joy and more fulfilled and more potentially full of joy. And so we invert it and we tell ourselves, okay, what doesn't bring us joy in our lives? And if we ask ourselves that question, it's a lot easier to find an answer, because as humans, we know more about the context behind the things we don't like and the people that we don't like and the experiences that we don't like, more than the things that we do like, that we do enjoy, and that we do find that true sense of joy in. So first, by asking yourself what you don't find joy in, it gives you a lot more of it gives you a little bit of clarity as far as deciding what does bring you joy. So, what brings you joy? It's probably going to end up being something that aligns with your values and principles, right? So after you've figured out what doesn't bring you joy, you've done your inversion exercise, you're left with a certain number of things that you might enjoy, right? That you might find joy in. And now what we need to do is do another level of auditing. So we've cut out the things that we don't find joyful, that we don't have, that don't bring us joy. And so now we're left with the things that could potentially bring us joy. And so we have to audit through those and really align or attempt to align all of them with your values and your principles. So we all have values, we all have principles, we all have beliefs. And what you need to do is look at these things, experiences, and people that you've written down to potentially bring you joy. And what you want to do is apply your principles and your values to them and do an audit, right? Of those, which ones truly align with who you are, essentially. And that'll eventually cut those down by quite a bit. And then you'll be left with a select few that are genuinely aligned with who you are as a person, and they are not the things that don't bring you joy, if that makes any sense, because we've done inversion. So we've reduced the likelihood that the thing that we will start doing in our lives will not bring us joy, and we have increased the likelihood that the thing that we will do that will possibly bring us joy is aligned with who we are as a person. So those things that remain are pretty high leverage as far as moving the needle forward towards finding joy. And the final thing is probably dark and sad and dreary, but I'm gonna be honest with you, it's honestly the most high ROI behavior you can do, because it doesn't take that much time. You can do it right now, actually, and it will lead you to the most deep understanding of what joy means to you. And no matter how dark it is, I want you to stick it out, because trust me, it's worth it. You need to reflect on your death, right? You need to reflect on the fact that at some point in the future, don't know when, don't know how, don't know where, there's no avoiding it. It's inevitable. Every single person before you has had to face it, and every person after you will have to face it. What happens when we die, right? What happens whenever you cease to exist? Ask yourself these unanswerable questions and then reflect upon them, right? Reflect on what you think happens, right? Reflect on what the moment will be like. And regardless of your religious affiliation and whatever, instead of reflecting on the after effects, which don't really matter, ask yourself what the moment is like just before you pass away, just before you move on, right? What is that moment like? Some people say your life flashes again before your eyes, like a movie, right? Some people say it's just like nothing. I like the idea of the movie. I like the idea that when you are about to cross a threshold, right, from life into death, I love the idea that you get to rewatch some like the certain moments of your life on the biggest screen that you've ever conceived of. And it's just like replaying the moments of your life. And I like to think that, this movie, it can't have every single moment of your life. It'd be too long. You'd be there forever. But if we were given the agency, the power to create the movie and to like pick the scenes that we got to rewatch again, right? That we got to rewatch right before we crossed the threshold. You bet your ass you're going to pick the moments that you remember. You're going to pick the good memories. You're going to pick the joyful moments, right? You're going to pick the experiences and the people and the memories that brought you a sense of joy and fulfillment. Those are the ones you're going to want to rewatch again, because they make you feel warm and fuzzy inside, right? They make you feel full. They make you feel transcended, right? If you want to actualize this idea, right? So like, let's just say hypothetically, we do actually get to watch a short film of our lives flash before us right before we pass on. If we use that frame, then we can realize that, okay, I need to reshift my perspective of living, right? Because if my goal is to have the most epic, the most amazing, the best movie I've ever watched is the one that I'll watch right before I move on. If you reframe it that way and then you start to just live your life in accordance with creating more memories, creating more moments, creating more joy in your everyday experience, so that that movie that you get to watch is so epic that you can just lay back and smile, that and bask in the warmth of that journey, right? That you've lived a good life, you know. And this film that you get to watch is evidence of it, right? Something I always thought about was, what if you've lived a life that is so lacking in joy and color and life that it's just like a gray silent film, right? Imagine your life is like a gray silent film. That makes me kind of sad. Makes me I wouldn't want to sit there and watch that, you know. So you want to be able to create these moments of joy in your life so that the movie that you get to watch is like this epic, colorful, amazing score, amazing editing, perfect color grading, incredible CGI effects, and all the things. It's a movie that you will genuinely want to watch, right? And so I think we're gonna be trying to seek adding a little bit more color, a little bit more beauty, a little bit more meaning to our lives. A good way to reframe it is just like the story that we'll get to rewatch right before we go on, the story that we'll get to tell the other people around us whenever we're approaching, right? I think that's the biggest reframe, because you effectively detach yourself from any really material outcome, any vanity outcome. It's basically just you're trying to create the most epic story for yourself, and that might sound a little selfish. It might sound a little crazy, a little bit radical, but I feel like most people's lives need a little bit of radicality. I don't know if that's a word. Most people's lives need to be a little bit more radical for some immense change to happen. You know, if you want to live an extraordinary life, you can't be ordinary. You've got to be weird. Being weird is a prerequisite to becoming extraordinary. I don't know if that's your goal, but that's mine, and I feel like finding joy is quite possibly one of the biggest pillars of that kind of life. So I hope this helps. Goodbye.